All right, hey guys. So Biden has added another name to the list of folks that he's considering for vice president. Um, I don't think this is a good one. First of all, let's talk about why he's announcing names, and understand that these people might ironically not really be in the running. Okay, but I think this one is. So first, without further ado, let me tell you who it is. So it's Gretchen Whitmer. She's the governor of Michigan. She endorsed Biden right before the Michigan election. There's where some people thought Bernie had a chance of making a comeback like he did in 2016. He didn't. Biden wound up winning Michigan. It was an important win for him. And it's a state that they've got to win in the general election. So there's plenty of quote unquote logic in putting Whitmer on the short list of people you're considering for VP. So I will get back to why I think it's a bad choice in a little bit. But first, let me explain to you guys why politically they might be doing this, even if they're not going to pick Gretchen Whitmer or the other folks that they're mentioning. So this is, first of all, let's just note for the record that Biden's taking a victory lap when the race is not over. Now, I understand that it is improbable for Bernie Sanders to win at this point, and I was more solidly in the camp after the last primary night of this thing's pretty much over. I am no longer in that camp. And the reason is we have a pandemic that has shown perfectly why Bernie Sanders is an ideal candidate if we had any rationality at all. That's point number one. Why does it show that? Boy, do we need Medicare for all desperately right now. Not only to treat people with coronavirus, but it's shown that, hey, when your life's on the line, you want the government to pay for it. So if your life's on the line for coronavirus and the government pays for it, why shouldn't it do the same if your life's on the line for cancer or any other disease? So we have won the ideological battle for Medicare for all. The only problem is no one on TV acknowledges it. If you got into any kind of debate, they'd have to completely fold immediately. What are they going to say? How we're going to pay for it? What do you mean? We just passed, when you include the Fed part of it, a $6.2 trillion stimulus package, partly because of coronavirus. What do you mean how we're going to pay for it? When Joe Sandberg, who's a great, wonderful progressive, had this Twitter thread today that made perfect sense. He's like, look, why is this a giant priority? So we don't have Medicare for all, they say would cost too much. That's actually not true. It saves money, doesn't cost money. It's a giant lie. It's been proven wrong by every study, but the mainstream media won't say it because they're biased and they have alternative facts. But let me quickly explain Joe's great point. He's like, the reason why they then say all of a sudden, hey, look, I found $6 trillion in my couch, is because coronavirus doesn't care if you're rich or poor. And it wipes out people's businesses. So all of a sudden, this affects rich people. So when you're sick, we can't afford Medicare for all. When you're poor, we can't afford to help you through unemployment insurance and other government benefits, etc. We can't afford to pay you a higher minimum wage, okay? But wait a minute, if I'm going to be sick, $6 trillion. If my business is going to go broke, $6 trillion. You want to take the Fed part out of it, still $2 trillion. All of a sudden, no one is asking how you're going to pay for it. So in a situation where you desperately need Medicare for all, and it's clearly the right thing to do, in a situation where someone's got to stand up for the average American worker as opposed to all the Fortune 500 companies, Bernie Sanders is the perfect candidate. And add on top of that, let alone the controversies surrounding Joe Biden that have come up since, that we talked about on the show before. But every interview Joe Biden does, there's a moment in the interview where he's like, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry to Donald Trump. I didn't mean to criticize him. And then even if you're not worried about his mental decline, I don't care how many people in the establishment yell at me. We could all see it with our own eyes. And look, I'm not biased. I actually thought in the last March 15th debate that he did a pretty good job. And some of my concerns were allayed. I was like, man, in the other debates, he was a disaster. And in interviews, he's had these moments in the speeches when he's had disastrous moments. I was really worried. He does the debate. He looked fine. I'm like, oh, okay, maybe he's all right. And since then, he's done a number of interviews. And in every interview, there's this moment you're like, oh, no, he's not fine. No, there's something very, very wrong. He'll put out commercials saying that it's Donald Trump is at fault for all these people dying. And then they'll ask him, hey, is Donald Trump at fault? And he'll be like, yes, I mean, no, I don't know. What am I saying? I don't know. So yes, we still have a race while Biden's taking a victory lap and measuring the drapes and trying to figure out who his vice president is going to be. But part of the reason he does that is to reinforce the frame, I have already won. Now, look, the media does it for him so much, he hardly has to do it, but I get why they do it, and that's the politics of doing it, to make it seem like it's already over when it isn't, okay? The second reason is to put people on lists when you're not going to pick them, to say, oh no, I was considering you. You were on my short list. Gretchen Whitmer, thank you for delivering Michigan for me, and that's why I almost picked you. Now this is the move that they do to Elizabeth Warren every 4 years. Oh, thanks for not endorsing Bernie. Yeah, oh my God, he was this close. That's why they'll make a huge deal every time out of like, oh, Elizabeth Warren's on the short list. Oh my God, and this list is a tiny, minute list, a show list, a minuscule list, a microscopic list, and Elizabeth Warren's on it. And yet she never gets picked. Okay, but keep waiting. Let's see how that turns out. Anyway, so this year, guess who's on the list? Elizabeth Warren. So progressives, we might pick her. Kamala Harris, African Americans, thank you for delivering South Carolina for me, and the rest of the South. So Kamala Harris, and she's so establishment, that's the one they might actually pick. Amy Klobuchar, they might actually pick her because she's an uninteresting candidate. Look, I told you by the end of the campaign, I kind of liked her raw honesty, but she's so moderate, she's so establishment. They might actually pick her because they're like, oh, vanilla, perfect. And I'm not talking racially there. I'm just talking about policies. Representative Val Demings. So she's African American from Florida, an important state. Thank you again, African Americans in the South, for delivering that for me. Look, I'm considering Val Demings, even though she's a lesser known House member, right? So why do they like Val Demings? She was one of the impeachment managers, and she's part of the New Democrat coalition. That means she's a conservative Democrat. Oh, African American from Florida, conservative, yes, right? So now at the end, they're likely not going to pick her because her name recognition is too small, but they're sending out to all these different constituencies, and we're on your side. African Americans, we're on your side. Okay, people that endorse me, I'm on your side. Progressives, I'm on your side. So, and by the way, don't get me wrong, that part of it is relatively smart politics. I'm okay with that strategy. You put all those names out there, try to win over friends and allies. At the end, you're only going to pick one person, and then you're going to say, what could I do? I could only pick one. So Stacey Abrams also on the list, etc. One last person. The other day they came out and said Catherine Cortez Masto was not only on the list, she's the Democratic senator from the state of Nevada, that she was in the top 3. There's a lot of folks in that top 3. Okay, now why are they saying that? Because they're almost certainly not going to pick her. And that's why you double down on, not only am I considering her, the list she's on is even more microscopic than the list Elizabeth Warren is on. Why? She's Latina. And Harry Reid's an old-time power broker in the Democratic Party. He handpicked her to replace him as Nevada senator. And so this is Biden's team going, Latinos and Latinas, we're looking out for you. We almost picked Senator Masto. Almost. It was this close. So that's how this game is played. So now back to Gretchen Whitmer. Are they actually considering her? Yes. This is one of the real ones, okay? Because she's got establishment written all over her. Now, why do I think it'd be a bad pick? One, ideologically, I would rather have someone more progressive rather than less progressive. She ran against Abdul El-Sayed, who was a wonderful progressive, just Democrat. But that's long gone, old history. She's the governor of Michigan. We wish her the best, especially under these circumstances, and I'm rooting for her in her home state. But ideologically, she's far more moderate and conservative than I am and the progressives are. So, of course, I wouldn't root for her. I root for the most progressive on the list. And, and if your head's going to explode over me being practical, okay, fine. But yes, in that context, I'm rooting for Elizabeth Warren because she is by far the most progressive on the list. Not even close. So you could have You could be emotional about it and say, "Oh yeah, well, I didn't like what she did X, Y, or Z." That's fine. And I look, they caught feelings. You're catching feelings. Everybody's catching feelings left and right. But if you want to be practical, she's the best one on the list. Okay, so that's a no-brainer. But why do I think it would be a bad pick politically, electorally, to pick Gretchen Whitmer? Because she's basically the Tim Kaine of this election cycle. Oh, we're going to pick somebody safe from a state we need to win. And that doesn't really excite any of our constituencies. And that won't drive anybody to the polls. But we're going to do it based on geography and because we think it's safe and because we think we already won. It's a pick based on arrogance. I've already won the nomination, so I'm getting to figure out who my VP is. And if I pick Gretchen Whitmer, it means, please, I've already got this thing locked up. I don't need the African-American votes. I don't need the Latino votes. But most importantly, look, those constituents are massively important, but they are spread out throughout the Democratic Party. So Latinos are more progressive than the rest of the Democratic Party. So if you go with a progressive candidate, that's not an insult to Latinos. That actually helps Latinos, as an example, right? But the biggest camp there, the ones you really need to excite and to get them to vote, is progressives. And I know that there are issues with Warren right now, but again, it's much easier to get progressives to be on your side if you pick the second most progressive senator in the country, as opposed to a conservative governor from the middle of the country that honestly doesn't excite anybody. So it's not a diss on Gretchen Whitmer. I don't know her personally, and and I get it if she doesn't like this because I'm saying she's not an exciting pick, but that's a fact. I mean, right now, as things stand, is there anyone in any state outside of Michigan that A, knows who Gretchen Whitmer is, and two, is going to be like, man, I got to get out there and vote for Whitmer. Oh my God. Whew. Man, there's Gretchen mania out there. That clearly does not exist. Does not even come close to existing. So that's a fact. And if they pick Gretchen Whitmer, that's the Tim Kaine of this election cycle. And oh boy, buckle up, brace for impact. So in reality, there's really only one pick on that list. If you want to go safe establishment, you're not going to excite anyone, and we're going to be in a world of trouble. Forget progressives being on the team. Forget ideology for a second. We've got to get people to show up to vote. Otherwise, Donald Trump's going to win. And if you pick safe and boring, it excites no one. It's Joe Biden's number one problem right now. The number of people excited to vote for Trump is nearly double of Biden. Biden wins in the polling because everyone who's in the middle or not excited goes, oh, no, not Trump. Trump's crazy. I'll vote for whoever else. A leather shoe, a leather jacket. Joe Biden, fine, sure, good enough, right? But in terms of people jazzed to go vote, which matters on voting day, when you go to vote, on election day, you need your side to show up more than the other side. That's the most important thing. If you got Biden who can't remember every other sentence, and you got Gretchen, no one knows me, Whitmer, we're in a world of trouble. Brace for impact. So let's hope they don't go in that direction. The one choice that is obvious in this case is Elizabeth Warren. Keep it real. All right, guys, much love. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow at 6 o'clock live, as we do every time, 6 o'clock Eastern, youtube.com/TYT or tyt.com/live. And thank you for helping the show and participating and keeping us on the air through these trying times. In order to help us do that, you can either become a member. There's a join button underneath the video on YouTube, or you can go to tyt.com/go to help our audience fundraising drive that we really, really need right now. Thank you guys. Much love. We'll see you tomorrow.